Hello, everyone. I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha, and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm so grateful that you're listening, subscribing, and commenting. I really appreciate the support. And in this one, I actually wanted to speak to you about eating disorders or our eating habits for INFJs in general. I've spoken about this previously in other videos where I spoke about how INFJs have a tendency to skip meals, to forget about eating meals, about food in general when they're really focused on their projects or really focused on whatever they're doing. We have a tendency to forget about our bodily needs in general. So we'll forget to sleep, we'll forget that we need to drink water, we'll forget that we need to blink or breathe. And I've done videos on all of this, but recently a friend of mine, an INFJ friend of mine, told me that she read somewhere that INFJs have a higher tendency than the normal population or the rest of the population to get eating disorders. And I thought that that was actually a really good topic to speak about, because I know that I've suffered from, not completely from an eating disorder, but I was very close to having one myself when I was in university. And I wanted to speak about that just so that I could shed a little bit of light on it. Also to speak about something that seems a little bit taboo somehow. And it's so funny because we live in a society where, especially women, if they start losing a lot of weight, it's considered to be such a great thing. Everyone's complimenting them and saying, "Oh my God, you look so beautiful. You lost so much weight. You should keep on doing that." Things like that. And it doesn't matter if the person's losing that weight very unhealthily. No one actually even cares about that. The only thing they care about is that the person is getting skinnier. Especially for women, this is highly true, because I know this every single time this had happened to me in my own life, where I would gain a little bit of weight perhaps, and I start losing it, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you look so great, keep on doing whatever you're doing," things like that. And it would be, when I was younger, it was a really great impetus for me to be like, "Oh, I'm looking better, great, I'm looking more beautiful, awesome, I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing," which was not eating enough food, or not taking care of myself, or skipping meals, or whatever other means I used. Thankfully, I never used any extravagant or really extreme measures to lose weight. I just did what I normally do. But I'll kind of go back a little bit to tell you, how it all started. And I believe it started when I was a teenager. I had huge body image issues. Somehow, even though I was extremely skinny at that point, considering how I look now, or how much wider I am now, back then I was extremely skinny. But because I had curves, even as soon as I was a teenager, of course I grew hips and I grew breasts and I became a woman, if you want to call it. And I started growing these curves, and it was so hard for me to accept my curves, because there was this constant refrain in my mind from society and from everyone around me that you need to be skinny, you need to be thin, you need to be skinny, you need to be thin. And I started hating my curves, started hating my hips and my thighs and all that, because they were not skinny in my opinion, even though they were, really, if you think about it. And when I was in university, when I got into university, I noticed that I was in a program. I was in the kinesiology program, and I noticed a program that all of the women, many of the women that I was surrounded by, they were all extremely skinny, much skinnier than me. Also, they had no hips and they had no curves, and a lot of them were actually anorexic. Now that I look back upon it, I realize there were a lot of them were anorexic. In fact, I admired this one woman a lot, this one girl, this one student, and she was absolutely gorgeous. It's the most beautiful, most delicate, pristine, beautiful thing in the world. And she was redheaded, so she had this gorgeous skin. But every single time, it was winter time, so we would all dress up, we would kind of wear a lot of clothes, and we would look bigger than we actually are, which is fine. But then as soon as summer came around, I loved her all throughout the winter time, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, she's so beautiful and she's so amazing," and she had a really hot boyfriend. I was like, "Oh my God, I want to be like that." And summer came around, and I started wearing shorts, and that is when I really started noticing how skinny she was. I mean, it wasn't even, the word skinny doesn't even begin to describe how thin she was. I could not even look at her. It just looking at her hands, her arms, her legs, her thighs, just made me want to cry because there's obviously something wrong with the situation. The problem was that just like I had mistaken her for her skinniness for beauty, and she was still beautiful, of course, but it was just really sad to look at her body because it was just so thin. But a lot of people kind of complimented her for the fact that she was so thin, and I'm sure that aggravated her anorexia. And I'm sure it aggravated her eating disorder. The problem I would always think about is because I would notice a lot of these girls in my program, because there were a lot of ballet the program that I was in, there was a lot of ballet dancers and a lot of gymnasts, and because it was a kinesiology program, there were a lot of really thin women, and some of them were extremely thin to the point where you'd be looking at them and thinking, she's barely there, she just almost disappeared. And of course it was because of the program and because of the extreme pressure that they were under in order to perform. A lot of them were under scholarships for the school in order to sports scholarships, I mean, and so they had to make sure that they kept on performing. And I was always surprised because a lot of them, almost all of them, had significant others, right? They had boyfriends. And I wondered to myself how the man could look at them every single day, touch them and caress them and all that stuff, and not say anything about the fact that they were so skinny. I don't know any of the details. I'm sure maybe they tried, perhaps they didn't notice, perhaps it was so normal to them, perhaps there's a lot of factors included in that. But I'll always be surprised because it just seemed like they just kept on becoming smaller and skinnier day by day, all of these women around me, and no one was doing anything about it. Now this was 21 years ago that I'm speaking about. So this was in 2000, and I'm guessing back then eating disorders weren't such a huge thing as they are right now, or not as well known. Or even so, I would look at all these women, and actually a lot of my thesis and a lot of my research papers that I did and I wrote were all on anorexia nervosa, because I was just obsessed with the idea of like, how can society not know this? How can their family members not know? Why is no one doing anything about this? They're obviously sick, or there's obviously something going on here and needs to be remedied, right? Unfortunately, I didn't, in my quest to perfect their lives and to make sure that they were safe, I forgot that I was not eating enough food, or I wasn't taking care of myself either. Now the problem was that because I had curves, even if I lost a lot of weight, it didn't really mean anything because I still had my hips. They were always there. There's no way I could lose enough weight to look straight thin like they used to. And so it didn't really matter to me because there was no way I would ever be as skinny as them. And so I worked out a lot. That was just part of the program as well. You had to have 2 or 3 sports that you took every week, and it was just every semester, and there's a full-time course load, and then I also worked part-time on top of that. There was very little time for me to eat. Most of the times, if possible, I would just kind of grab an energy drink or a sports drink or like a protein shake, because it was just easier to gulp something down rather than actually have a proper meal. To eat a proper meal was such a pain because it took so much time and effort. And so a lot of times I would just skip that. I would just do protein shakes. And of course, I lost a lot of weight and I lost a lot of muscle mass. Now thankfully what happened with me was that I stopped. I realized that I was getting, because of all my research that I did and also the fact that I did not want to lose any more weight than I already lost, I decided, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do this to myself. I'm going to try as much as possible to start eating properly. A lot of that has also to do with the fact that I started doing yoga and I started running, and I wanted to become more healthy in that manner and blah 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 blah. But I wanted to share this with you because I realized that it would have been very easy for me to go down that slope, that slippery slope of keeping on eating terribly, not eating enough, not taking care of myself, skipping meals. And I even notice right now, as I am in this moment in time, it's very easy for me to lose weight because I can literally start skipping meals or eating very little, and I don't want to notice it because I'm busy with work, and I don't notice it because I'm busy with a project or in my head, and suddenly I'll realize that I have a hunger headache. Now I try as much as possible, as I've said before, not to do that anymore. I try as much as possible not to skip any meals. I try as much as possible to eat every meal possible, even more meals than necessary. And I always try as much as possible to have as many calories in the day as possible, because I know that my body burns through it very quickly, because I do a lot of things. I'm always moving, and I have a lot of, my metabolism is very fast, and I'm always, thinking, and the brain takes up a lot of energy. So mental power, mental stress takes up a lot of energy as well. And creativity takes up a lot of energy as well. So I'm always making sure that I eat a lot, but I do notice that it's very easy, even if I start taking care of or skipping a few meals, or just kind of eating a little bit less than normal, I just kind of start losing weight very quickly. It's also because of my body type, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But as INFJs in general, we have to be careful, because it is very easy for us to do that to ourselves. We don't care about food as much as other people do. We don't live to eat, we eat to live. I think that I said that right. So we're just eating to make sure that we stay alive enough so that we can do the things that we need to do. Because it's such, in my mind, a lot of times I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, if I didn't have to spend hours and hours and hours thinking about food, where would my next meal come from? What am I going to eat next? I would have saved so much time, and I could use that time for something else, right? But that's not how life works. We have to take care of this physical body. It is our temple. It's where our soul resides. This is where we are living for now, and so we have to take care of it. When we're angels, or we go into the beyond, and we can forget about that then. But for now, you have to take care of this body, and the physical body needs food, and it needs a certain amount of food, and every person is different in that regard, obviously, right? And so whatever works for you, you have to figure that out and eat as much as you need to. Take care of yourself. Don't skip meals, and be careful if you notice yourself slipping into strange territories with eating disorders, or noticing that you're losing way too much weight. And I know so many INFJs who message me, and they send me pictures, and I see that they're dangerously close to that. And a lot of them complain to me as well, saying, I try, I eat as much as possible, but I just don't gain any weight. And I know I feel for you, but that just literally means you need to eat more food. Just stuff more calories into you, not unhealthy calories, but calories. Start eating more fats. I eat a lot of avocados, a lot of coconut milk, a lot of coconut in general. Just eat a lot of more fats, a lot more proteins. I eat a lot of tofu, a lot of tempeh. I'm vegetarian or vegan right now, so it's very difficult for me, because meat is literally really good for gaining weight, right? Wheat is also really good if you want to gain weight. I'm also gluten-free right now, which is also a problem, because it's very easy to gain weight for me if I'm eating wheat and meat, both. Anyways, these are a few things I wanted to tell you with regards to eating disorders and my own experience with it. Of course, as I said, I never really went truly into it, because I was careful enough, and I stepped back before I really went deep. But I know many women in my program who definitely had an issue with it. There was really nothing being done about it. I'm hoping that there's more being done in universities about that now, but I really have no idea, because I haven't been in one in a while. I'd love to hear from you if you have experience with it, either with yourself or with a friend or a family member. Let me know, and let me know what you do in terms of food to make sure that you eat enough during the day, especially as an INFJ, because I know that's a huge problem for us. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being on my channel. I really appreciate it, and I shall see you the next time around. Bye for now.